My father's voice cracked across the probate courtroom. "You won't get a cent of this estate." The clerk stopped typing. I stayed still. Graham Vale had built warehouses, rental homes, and a marina outside Charleston, and he carried his money like a second skin. My brother Owen sat behind him, pretending to be calm. My sister Maris stared at her hands. I stood alone at the petitioner's table in a navy blazer, exactly where they wanted me. "You abandoned this family 20 years ago," my father snapped. "Now she shows up for money." Judge Helena Brooks adjusted her glasses. "Mr. Vale, lower your voice." Beside my father sat his attorney, Nolan Pierce. He had known me once, when I was Commander Lena Vale in the Navy, and he had not looked at me once in the first minutes of the hearing. I turned toward him. "Nolan?" His face drained of color. "Lena?" My father frowned. "What is this?" "The last time we met," I said, "was in Norfolk, during a fraud investigation." The room went quiet. Years ago, Nolan had been a civilian consultant on a military contractor case I helped expose. He had seen what I was willing to do when powerful people tried to bury the truth. Judge Brooks leaned forward. "Counselor, any issue?" Nolan swallowed. "No, Your Honor." My father heard the hesitation. So did I. I sat slowly. Calm wins rooms like this. 3 weeks earlier, Ruth Mercer had called me from Savannah. Property transfers were happening while my father was in and out of treatment. Signatures were changing. Accounts were moving. "Your mother would want you to look," she whispered. My mother had been dead 11 years. I had come because something smelled rotten. When court recessed, Nolan asked to speak with me privately. He led me into a conference room that smelled of dust and burnt coffee, then set a thin folder on the table. Inside were deeds, bank authorizations, medical records, and one signature page that made my stomach tighten. My father's name looked shaky. 6 months earlier, while he was hospitalized, waterfront property had been transferred into an LLC linked to Owen. Another parcel had been assigned partly to Selena Morell, his caregiver. "Why would he do that?" I asked. Nolan looked miserable. "I don't think he understood every document." I read the medical notes. Then Nolan slid one more item across the table, an envelope yellowed with age. I recognized my mother's handwriting before I touched it. "For Lena, if things go wrong." The first line made my breath catch. "If you are reading this, someone in this family has betrayed your father." Court resumed, and I showed the evidence. Owen tried to laugh it off. My father tried to dominate the room. Then a recording played by mistake from my sister's phone. Owen's voice came through the hallway speaker. "He barely remembers half the paperwork." Silence hit harder than shouting. My father stared at Owen as if seeing him for the first time. Judge Brooks froze the disputed transfers and continued the hearing. Owen stormed out. Maris cried in the kitchen later and admitted she had been too afraid to challenge anyone. The next hearing was crowded. Nolan had withdrawn. My father's new lawyer attacked me as a bitter daughter chasing inheritance. I answered with records, handwriting analysis, and bank trails. Then Selena took the stand. She tried to protect Owen at first, but when I asked who told her to bring papers to my father during medication hours, she broke. "Owen did," she whispered. My brother stood up, red-faced and desperate, but the damage was done. My mother's letter had warned me to protect my father from people who confused love with weakness. When the hearing ended, the court ordered a full investigation and a temporary freeze on the estate. That evening, my father asked me to sit with him on the back porch of the old house. He looked smaller there, the way men do when their armor cracks. "I knew something was off," he said. "I just didn't want to admit I was losing control." "You were getting older," I told him. "That isn't the same thing." He stared into the dark yard. "I was proud of you," he said. "I just never learned how to say it." I had waited 22 years to hear that. It did not feel like victory. It felt like grief. He changed the estate before he died, leaving me my mother's letters and the house by the marsh. After the funeral, I moved there and found one last note tucked behind a dresser drawer. My mother had written that families do not collapse because of money alone. They collapse when people stop listening. I keep that letter in my living room now. Some evenings I sit on the porch and watch the water turn gold at sunset. I remember my father not as the man who shouted in court, but as the tired man who told the truth. Forgiveness does not erase what happened. It gives the living somewhere to go,